Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy, and I'm glad you're visiting my channel. Here we share new confessions every day.
The first time I asked Jessica Calloway for a raise, she laughed. Not the kind of laugh you hear at happy hour, the sharp, dismissive kind that makes your stomach drop. By year 3, when I walked into her corner office with revenue reports proving my worth, she didn't even look up from her phone. That's when I knew loyalty at Calloway and Dean was a one-way street. And I was done being the fool paying the toll. Monday, 8:47 a.m. The elevator doors slid open on the 42nd floor, and I adjusted the strap of my laptop bag, my heels clicking against marble as I passed the glass-walled conference rooms. Through the windows, Chicago's skyline glittered, postcard perfect, if you ignored the storm brewing in my chest. I'd spent all weekend preparing spreadsheets, client retention stats, the Miller Co. deal I'd salvaged single-handedly when Jessica had pissed off their VP. Every argument bulletproof. 9:02 a.m. Her assistant, Tyler, gave me a tight smile. "She's ready for you." Jessica's office smelled like expensive perfume and ambition. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A modernist desk that cost more than my car. She was typing something, her blonde bob perfectly still. "Amanda." Finally, she looked up. Closed the door. I sat, sliding the folder across the desk. "I'd like to revisit my compensation. Here's what my team has delivered this year." She flipped a page without reading. "You know Q3's tight. Bonuses are frozen." "This isn't about bonuses." I kept my voice steady. "My base salary hasn't changed since my promotion, and according to market data." "Market data?" She smirked, tapping her Mont Blanc pen. "If you wanted market rates, you should have gone to Goldman Sachs." A pause. "Oh wait, you interviewed there last year, didn't you?" My pulse spiked. "How the hell?" "Relax." She leaned back, smug. "I've got friends in HR, point is, you're still here. Which means we're paying you enough." The subtext hung between us, "You're not brave enough to leave." 11:30 a.m. Back at my desk, I stared at my screen until the numbers blurred. 3 years. 3 years of swallowing her condescension, of watching junior execs, male junior execs, get promoted past me. 3 years of be patient and next cycle. My phone buzzed. A new email. From Daniel Sterling, daniel.sterling@sterlinggray.com. Subject, quick call. I exhaled. The universe had terrible timing. When Jessica appeared in the doorway of my cubicle holding a security box, I knew. The funny thing. I'd never seen her deliver bad news herself before. She always had Tyler do it. That's how I understood, this wasn't just business. This was personal. Wednesday, 3:18 p.m. The coffee in my mug had gone cold. I'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for 20 minutes, Daniel Sterling's offer letter burning a hole in my inbox. Base salary, $215,000. Signing bonus, $25,000. Nearly double what Jessica paid me. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, my fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. A shadow fell across my desk. "Amanda." Jessica stood there in her signature cream-colored blazer, arms crossed. No preamble. No fake smile. Just a white security box tucked under one arm, the kind they used for terminated employees. My stomach dropped. "Effective immediately, your employment here is terminated." She set the box down with a thud. "Security will escort you out." Behind her, Tyler avoided my eyes, shifting uncomfortably. The entire floor had gone quiet, heads peeking over cubicle walls, fingers frozen mid-type. I swallowed. Can I ask why? Jessica's lips curled. You know why. And I did. Flashback, Tuesday, 1:47 p.m. The sterling and grey lobby smelled like leather and money. Daniel, mid-40s, sharp navy suit, had greeted me with a handshake and a knowing look. Heard great things about the Miller Co. deal. Jessica Calloway's lucky to have you. She doesn't seem to think so, I joked. Big mistake. Because as I'd left, who was stepping out of the elevator across the street? Jessica. Staring right at the sterling and grey logo. Right at me. Present, 3:22 p.m. Now, in my cubicle, Jessica lowered her voice. Interviewing with our biggest competitor? That's not just disloyal, Amanda. That's a betrayal. I almost laughed. Betrayal? After 3 years of empty promises. After watching her take credit for my work. But then I saw it, the flicker in her eyes. Not anger. Fear. She was scared. Scared of what I knew. Scared of where I might go. So I did the one thing she didn't expect. I smiled. Not a bitter smile. Not a forced one. A real, easy, thank you for this smile. I'll just take my things, I said, reaching for the box. Jessica stiffened. Tyler will supervise. Of course. I dropped my keycard into her palm, letting my fingers linger just long enough to feel her pulse jump. Good luck with the Kensington presentation next week. Oh wait, that was mine, wasn't it? Her face went pale. 5:03 p.m. Security hovered by the elevators as I packed. My team watched in silence, all except Mark from accounting, who waited until Tyler looked away and slid a flash drive into my pocket. The Kensington files, he muttered. And, some other stuff you might find interesting. The elevator doors closed. I hit lobby and finally exhaled. Jessica thought she'd fired me. She had no idea she'd just set me free. The funny thing about corporate secrets. They're never really secret. Just waiting for the right person to expose them. And as I attached those files to the email, I realized, Jessica hadn't just made me unemployed. She'd made me dangerous. Friday, 11:37 p.m. My apartment smelled like cheap wine and revenge. The flash drive Mark had slipped me glinted under the lamplight as I scrolled through files I was never supposed to see. Kensington presentation.pptx. Q3_true_revenue_report.xlsx. Client_retention_actuals.pdf. The numbers didn't lie. Jessica had been hiding a 22% drop in client retention. Cooking the books to make her division look profitable. And the Kensington deal. The one she'd fired me over. It was a house of cards, one I'd been propping up for months. I took a long sip of wine. Then I opened a new email. To Daniel Sterling daniel.sterling@sterlinggray.com. CC, Thomas Wright thomas.wright@sterlinggray.com, CEO. Subject, Why Calloway and Dean is bleeding clients. Daniel. Attached, you'll find proof of what I hinted at during our interview. Their stellar retention rate. Fabricated. The Kensington deal. On life support. Jessica Calloway's been lying to shareholders for at least 8 quarters. P.S. Notice the discrepancies in the Q3 report versus what was presented to the board. Page 17 is particularly enlightening. Amanda. I hovered over send. 3 years of swallowed pride. 3 years of not this quarter, Amanda. 3 years of watching Jessica smirk as she took bonuses built on my work. I clicked it. Saturday, 9:15 a.m. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Amanda. Thomas Wright. We need to talk. In person. Monday, 7:30 a.m., Sterling and Gray HQ. Thomas Wright didn't shake my hand. He just slid a contract across the table. Senior VP. 30% above your Callaway salary. Full oversight of the Kensington account when it inevitably jumped ship. He paused. And a discretionary bonus, contingent on what else you might know. I glanced at Daniel, who gave me a barely there nod. I'll need to review the non-compete, I said. Thomas laughed. Jessica's lawyers are a little busy right now. Meanwhile, at Callaway and Dean, 10:47 a.m. Jessica's office phone rang. Again. Ms. Callaway, the board insists. I said not now. She slammed the receiver down, staring at the email on her screen. From Legal and Compliance. Subject, urgent, shareholder emergency meeting. Her hands shook. Because attached was a forwarded message from Sterling and Gray's CEO. With her own falsified files. There's a special kind of silence that fills a room when a powerful person realizes their empire is crumbling. It's the sound of leather chairs not creaking because no one dares move. The absence of phones buzzing because even notifications hold their breath. That's the silence that greeted Jessica Callaway when she walked into the boardroom and saw my files projected on the screen. Tuesday, 8:02 a.m., Callaway and Dean headquarters. The elevator doors opened to chaos. Reporters clustered in the lobby, their cameras flashing as executives rushed past with tight-lipped expressions. Upstairs, the trading floor buzzed with panicked voices, down another 4% this morning. As Callaway and Dean stock continued its nosedive. But the real spectacle was happening in the 58th floor boardroom. Jessica stood frozen in the doorway. Every seat at the long mahogany table was filled. Every pair of eyes locked onto the screen at the front of the room, where a slideshow of her doctored financials played on loop. And at the head of the table, Richard Whitman, lead shareholder, holding a printed copy of my email. Jessica, he said, care to explain why Sterling and Gray knows more about our books than our own board? Flashback, Monday night, Amanda's apartment. I'd expected a call. Maybe a threatening email from Jessica's lawyer. I hadn't expected Richard Whitman himself to show up at my doorstep. Ms. Carter, he'd said, rain dripping from his Burberry trench coat, I'd like to offer you a consulting fee. In exchange for context. 2 hours later, his pen hovered over a check with enough zeros to make my breath catch. One condition, I said, pushing it back. No cover-up. The shareholders see everything. He'd smiled then, the kind of smile sharks give before feeding. Oh, Miss Carter. We wouldn't have it any other way. Present, boardroom aftermath, 10:17 a.m. Jessica's usual poise had cracked. This is a targeted smear by a disgruntled ex-employee. She slammed her palms on the table. Amanda Carter was fired for gross insubordination. And yet, interrupted Evelyn Cho, CFO, her numbers match our internal audit. The one you blocked last quarter. A murmur rippled through the room. Richard tapped the email printout. The real question is, did you think no one would notice? Or did you just not care? Jessica's phone buzzed. A notification lit up the screen. Bloomberg, Callaway and Dean under SEC investigation. Her perfectly manicured fingernails dug into the table. 12:30 p.m., Sterling and Gray lobby. I sipped my latte as the receptionist handed me my new keycard. Senior Vice President, she beamed. Your office is ready. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched the commotion across the street. TV vans. Protesters with "Fire Callaway" signs. And just visible in a top-floor window, a blonde figure pacing behind glass. Daniel appeared beside me, following my gaze. Kensington's CEO called this morning, he said. They're pulling out. Seems they don't trust a firm under investigation. I took another sip. Shame. There are two types of silence in corporate America. The first is the kind that fills a room when power changes hands. The second. The deafening quiet of an empty office when the person who built their empire on lies finally packs up their designer pens and leaves. As I watched Jessica clear out her desk through the binoculars Daniel jokingly gifted me, I realized I much preferred the second kind. 1 month later, 7:15 a.m. The security guard barely glanced at my sterling and gray keycard as I stepped into the elevator. My reflection in the mirrored wall showed a woman who belonged here, crisp navy blazer, hair pulled back in the same low bun I used to wear at Callaway and Dean. Only now, no one talked over me in meetings. My office smelled like fresh paint and victory. The brass nameplate on the door gleamed. Amanda Carter, Senior Vice President, Client Strategy. I set down my coffee and walked to the window. Across the street, a lone figure struggled with a cardboard box in the Callaway and Dean lobby. Jessica. No assistant. No driver. Just her and a taxi waiting at the curb. My phone buzzed. Bloomberg alert, former Callaway and Dean EVP Jessica Callaway indicted on fraud charges. I zoomed in with the binoculars just in time to see her drop the box, scattering framed diplomas across the sidewalk. Flashback, 3 weeks earlier, SEC hearing room. The wooden bench dug into my knees as I waited to testify. Jessica sat across the room, flanked by lawyers, her usual icy composure replaced by something raw around the edges. When our eyes met, she mouthed 2 words. You win. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then the prosecutor played the recording, Jessica telling the Kensington team those numbers are absolutely guaranteed, while her private notes showed projected loss, 22%. The way her lawyer's pen clattered to the floor was almost as satisfying as the gasp from the jury box. Present day, 8:30 a.m. Daniel leaned against my doorframe holding 2 champagne flutes. Kensington just signed. They asked for you specifically. I took the glass but didn't drink. Outside, Jessica's taxi pulled away. You're not celebrating? He asked. I tapped the SEC envelope on my desk, the one summoning me as a witness for the criminal trial. Not yet. Courtrooms smell like wood polish and power. When I walked in, every head turned, not because I mattered, but because they all knew I was the woman who destroyed Jessica Callaway's career. But when her lawyer slid that photo across the table, I realized this game wasn't over yet. 9:02 a.m., Federal Courthouse, Chicago. The AC hummed like an angry hornet. I adjusted my collar, the one I'd bought after getting fired, and felt my palms grow damp. Jessica sat at the defense table, her fingers strangling a pen like it was the last anchor before a storm. Ms. Carter, the prosecutor's voice rang out. Do you confirm these internal Callaway and Dean communications are authentic? I looked at the screen, where Jessica's email glowed. Kensington's panicking. If they see real numbers, the deal's dead. Adjust reports by Thursday. Yes. That's her email. Her wording. A murmur rippled through the room. 10:17 a.m., cross-examination. Jessica's lawyer, a man with a Rolex and colder eyes than hers, approached with a file. Ms. Carter, you claim you acted solely out of ethical concern. I acted because lying to clients is a crime. He smirked, producing a photo. And this, part of your crusade for truth. The image showed me accepting an envelope from Richard Whitman on my doorstep. My heart stalled. A consulting fee for data analysis, I said, but the room was already buzzing. For the first time all day, Jessica smiled. 12:30 p.m. recess. In a bathroom stall, I unclenched my fists, crescent marks from my nails scored my palms. They knew. But they didn't know everything. My phone vibrated. A text from Daniel. Relax. We have audio. 2:15 p.m. The killing blow. When the judge allowed new evidence, I inserted the flash drive. Jessica's voice filled the room. If SEC digs in, we blame the auditors. Say they missed it. Her lawyer went pale. Then, Whitman's voice. You sure Carter won't go to the SEC? She's too ambitious. Offer her a title and she'll swallow anything. Silence. The prosecutor stood slowly. Your Honor, this proves conspiracy at the executive level. Jessica wasn't smiling anymore. Asterisk, they offered me the partnership at noon. By 2 p.m., I stood at my new floor-to-ceiling window, watching them scrub Jessica Calloway's name from the building across the street. The brass plate on my door gleamed, Amanda Carter, partner. And the only thing sweeter than the title, knowing she'd see it every day from her prison visitation room. Asterisk. Monday, 12:17 p.m., Sterling and Gray Executive Conference Room. Thomas Wright slid the contract across the polished mahogany. We want you as partner. Full equity stake. One condition. His finger tapped clause 12. You never speak to the press about Whitman. I sipped my espresso, the good stuff, not the sludge from Calloway's break room. Why protect him? Thomas smiled. We own his debt now. He'll vote our way on every board decision for the next decade. I signed. 2:03 p.m., my new office. The movers were hanging my Harvard diploma when Daniel appeared, holding 2 glasses of 25-year Macallan. To karma, he toasted. Across the street, workers power washed the Callaway and Dean logo from the granite facade. SEC settled this morning, he said. Jessica got 7 years. Whitman walked with a fine. I swirled the amber liquid. She'll serve 3 with good behavior. Asterisk still. Daniel grinned. Check your inbox. The email header made me laugh aloud. Wall Street Journal, disgraced exec's home listed at 40% loss. Jessica's penthouse, the one she'd flaunted at every company retreat, was in foreclosure. 3:30 p.m. Unexpected delivery. The envelope bore no return address. Inside, a single sheet of prison stationery. Amanda. Enjoy the view. J. Taped to it, a faded photo of us at my first Callaway holiday party. Back when I still believed hard work earned rewards. I fed it to the shredder. 5 p.m., the first real sunset. As Chicago's skyline burned gold, I propped my feet on the desk, scuffing the $10,000 finish Thomas would later complain about. My phone buzzed. A notification. SEC whistleblower program, reward processed, $2,750,000. I texted Mark, drinks on me. Pick the place. Then I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to the junior analyst who replaced me at Callaway. The subject line. Let's talk about your future.